Good evening, everyone. In this first episode, we take a look at some of the most disturbing criminal cases that have unfolded in the state of Arizona, stories that not only shock the public but also raise deeper questions about psychology, justice, and human nature. No sensationalism, no dramatization, just the truth told clearly and with the weight it deserves. Robert William Fisher was once seen as a devoted husband, a proud father, and a respected respiratory therapist in Scottsdale, Arizona. Born in Brooklyn in 1961, he grew up in Tucson with two sisters, but his world shifted when his parents divorced while he was 15. Friends recalled he never truly let go of the bitterness from that split. In 1987, he married Mary Jean Cooper, and together they built what seemed to be a wholesome suburban life, raising their daughter Brittany and son Bobby. They camped, hunted, and attended church regularly. But beneath the surface, Fisher was a controlling and distant man, one who struggled with emotional intimacy and feared abandonment. That fear may have been his undoing. Years of marital strain were punctuated by a one-night affair and his wife's growing talk of divorce. According to friends, Mary confided that she had endured Robert's controlling behavior for too long. His mother saw in his marriage the same unhealthy dynamics she had lived through. As the tension escalated, Fisher withdrew from his church community and the couple sought counseling. Yet he reportedly told a hunting buddy that he could not live without his family, words that in hindsight carried a chilling weight. On the night of April 9, 2001, neighbors heard a loud argument coming from the Fisher home. In the early hours of April 10th, investigators believe Mary was shot in the back of the head while Brittany and Bobby's throats were slashed. Hours later, a gas explosion ripped through their Scottsdale house, obliterating the structure and sending flames into the sky. Fire crews found the bodies lying in bed, revealing the fire was set to conceal the killings. By then, Robert was gone. Days later, his Toyota 4Runner was found abandoned in Tonto National Forest, 150 miles away, with the family dog alive but alone nearby. There was no trace of Fisher. A state warrant charged him with 3 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of arson, followed by a federal warrant for unlawful flight. In June 2002, he was named the 475th fugitive on the FBI's 10 Most Wanted list. Over the years, there have been hundreds of reported sightings across the United States, Mexico, and Canada, but none confirmed. Psychologists suggest Fisher's fear of divorce, rooted in his own adolescence, could have driven him to commit familicide, the murder of one's own spouse and children. Others believe he may have been motivated by a desire to maintain control at any cost. Law enforcement describes him as an avid outdoorsman, physically fit, possibly working menial jobs for cash, and capable of surviving in remote areas. Some speculate he may have remarried and assumed a new identity, while others wonder if he ended his life in the wilderness. The FBI continues to offer a $100,000 reward for information leading to his capture. Robert William Fisher's story lingers as one of Arizona's most haunting unsolved cases. A portrait of a man who appeared to have everything yet may have destroyed it all. If he is still alive, he has been in hiding for more than 2 decades, living somewhere among us. Perhaps the most unsettling thought is not whether he is dead or alive, but that he could be living quietly in plain sight, with no one around him knowing the past he left in flames. 13-year-old Christy Ann Fornoff vanished on May 9, 1984, while collecting payments on her newspaper route in Tempe, Arizona. Her mother had let her out of sight for just a moment. Within hours, police were searching the apartment complex with canine units. Neighbors joined in, including Donald Edward Beaty, the complex's maintenance man. 2 days later, Beaty was seen standing over Christy's body, wrapped in a sheet and placed beside a dumpster. He claimed he had just found her and had already called police. That was a lie. The call came minutes after a witness saw him with the body. Investigators quickly turned their attention to Beaty. The evidence was overwhelming. Christy's vomit matched a substance found in Beaty's closet. Fibers from his carpet and blanket were found on her body. Hair samples linked them. Even ferret hair from a previous tenant was present. The autopsy revealed she had been sexually assaulted and suffocated, likely within 2 hours of her disappearance. Beaty's alibi fell apart. Witnesses he named denied seeing him. He claimed police had searched his apartment. They hadn't. He tried to borrow a car the night after Christy vanished, possibly to move the body. And he had lied about when he called the police. He was arrested on May 21st. A day later, prison psychiatrist Dr. George O'Connor met with Beaty. Initially, their conversations were routine, but weeks later during a group therapy session, Beaty broke down. He said he hadn't meant to kill Christy, that he had placed his hand over her mouth to silence her screams and she suffocated. The confession was made casually in a public space after a session. Though Beaty had signed a confidentiality agreement, the court ruled that no physician-patient privilege applied. The statement was admissible. His first trial ended in a hung jury, but in the second trial, O'Connor's testimony was added to the physical evidence. Beaty was convicted of first-degree murder and sexual assault. The judge found the crime especially cruel and depraved. Beaty was sentenced to death plus 28 years for the assault. Appeals followed challenging the use of O'Connor's testimony, the constitutionality of Arizona's death penalty statute, and the effectiveness of Beaty's legal counsel. All were denied. Christy's parents, Carol and Roger Fornoff, turned their grief into advocacy. They helped pass Arizona's Victims' Bill of Rights and founded Christy's House in the Pines, a retreat for families of murder victims. They described Christy as a dream child and decorated their cabin with butterflies in her memory. After 27 years on death row, Beaty was executed by lethal injection on May 25, 2011. His final words were directed at the Fornoff family. I'm sorry. God will let you see her again. His brother Freddie mouthed, I love you from the witness room. Christy's family stood together, finally receiving the apology they had waited decades to hear. But closure is never simple. Carol Fornoff later said, we pray for the family of Donald Beaty, as they too have suffered through the years. And in a quiet moment, she added, her life was not in vain. Even in death, she brought light to the darkness. Robert Charles Comr was 40 years old when he committed the crimes that would define his legacy. A drifter with no stable occupation, he arrived at the Burnt Corral campground near Apache Lake, Arizona, accompanied by his girlfriend Geneva Willis and her 2 children. To the casual observer, Comr might have seemed like just another camper, tattooed rugged, perhaps eccentric, but not immediately threatening. His upbringing was middle class with no clear signs of abuse. He had gone fishing as a child, earned average grades, and was one badge away from becoming an Eagle Scout. But beneath that surface lay a man shaped by years of incarceration, isolation, and rage. Comr had previously served time in California for rape and kidnapping, spending months in Folsom's notorious segregated housing unit. In those windowless cells surrounded by rats and the stench of human waste, he claimed to have lost his humanity. He wrote that he used to talk to the rats, and after 4 months, they talked back. It was there, he said, that he learned about the Bible and concluded there was no God. On the evening of February 3, 1987, Comr invited a nearby camper, Larry Pritchard, to join him and Willis for dinner and drinks. At around 9 o'clock, Comr shot Pritchard in the head and later stabbed him in the neck. He then removed an emergency medical technician badge from Pritchard's pocket, and Willis helped hide the body under a pile of wood. They stole Pritchard's belongings and his dog before moving on to the next victims. Comr and Willis approached Jane Jones and Richard Smith, fellow campers they had met earlier. Posing as Arizona drug enforcement officers, Comr flashed the stolen EMT badge and ordered them out of their tent at gunpoint. He tied them up with wire and duct tape, loaded them into their truck, and stole several items. During the drive, Comr sexually assaulted Jones multiple times, including once in front of the truck. When the vehicle ran out of gas, Jones managed to escape while Comr was distracted. Smith had also escaped and reported the incident. Police apprehended Comr and Willis shortly after. The legal consequences were swift and severe. Comr was charged with first-degree murder, armed robbery, kidnapping, aggravated assault, and multiple counts of sexual abuse and assault. Willis pled guilty to 1 count of kidnapping in exchange for testifying against Comr. The other charges against her were dropped. Comr was sentenced to death in April 1988 and received an additional 339 years for the other crimes. But the story didn't end there. For more than 2 years, Comr fought to waive his appeals and expedite his execution. He claimed it was his way of taking responsibility, a debt owed to his victims, to society, and to himself. His attorneys argued that the harsh conditions of his confinement had distorted his reasoning. Comr lived in a 7 by 11-foot cell in Arizona's Special Management Unit 2, one of the most isolating environments in the country. He paced for hours each day, calculating that 300 laps equaled 1 mile. He punched walls just to feel something. He made weapons from desk parts and lighter wheels. Guards wore body armor. His only furniture was a bed and a toilet. Psychiatrists disagreed on his mental state. Some believed he was competent and lucid. Others diagnosed him with depression and post-traumatic stress disorder, arguing that his desire to die was a symptom of psychological collapse. Comr, however, remained defiant. "I killed for no good reason," he told a reporter. "I screwed up the lives of many innocent people. I think it's just time for me to pay the price." On May 22, 2007, Robert Comr was executed by lethal injection. He entered the chamber with a photo of his daughter and smiled at the witnesses. His final words were, "Go Raiders." He held that smile until the drugs took effect. By 10:08 that morning, he was dead. And yet the debate lingers. Was Comr a monster shaped by his own choices or by the system that confined him? Did he truly find peace in death? Or was it simply the only escape left? One thing remains certain. Robert Comr's story is not just about crime. It's about confinement consequence and the haunting question of what justice really looks like when humanity is stripped away. Richard Lynn Bible was 26 years old when he committed the crime that would define the rest of his life. At the time, he was unemployed and living in Flagstaff, Arizona, having recently been released from prison after serving 6 years for kidnapping and sexually assaulting a teenage relative. Bible grew up in a troubled environment marked by instability and strained family relationships. Though he had moments of normalcy, his public image was far from clean. Locals knew him as unpredictable, and his prior conviction had already cast a long shadow over his reputation. In the months leading up to the crime, Bible showed signs of escalating behavior. He had a history of violence and manipulation, and his release from prison did not mark a turning point toward rehabilitation. Instead, he drifted aimlessly, reportedly stealing from family members and engaging in petty crimes. His emotional state appeared volatile, and his actions suggested a growing disregard for consequences. The theft of a vehicle from a county impound lot near Sheep Hill was one of several impulsive acts that hinted at deeper psychological unrest. On the morning of June 6, 1988, 9-year-old Jennifer Wilson was vacationing with her family in Flagstaff. She asked to ride her bicycle the final mile to a ranch where the family had boarded horses. Her parents agreed, and they passed her on the road shortly after 10:30. But Jennifer never arrived. Her bicycle was later found abandoned by the roadside. Her mother recalled seeing a blue Blazer-type vehicle speeding past, driven by a dark-haired man who stared at her intently. That same day, Bible was seen driving a stolen GMC Jimmy with a dented bumper. He visited his brother near Sheep Hill, claiming the vehicle belonged to a friend. Later that evening, police spotted the vehicle, now painted a different color. Bible fled during a high-speed chase and was eventually found hiding under a ledge camouflaged with branches. He was arrested wearing jeans boots, a plaid shirt, and no underwear. Inside the vehicle, investigators found vodka bottles, hot chocolate packets, broken cigars, rubber bands, and traces of blood. 3 weeks later, hikers discovered Jennifer's body near Sheep Hill. She had been hidden under a tree, her hands tied behind her back with a shoelace. Her clothing was scattered nearby, and the scene was littered with rubber bands identical to those found in Bible's vehicle. Forensic analysis revealed hair and fibers linking Jennifer to Bible's clothing vehicle and personal items. A pubic-type hair found near the body matched Bible's sample. Blood on his shirt was tested using early DNA technology and confirmed to be Jennifer's, with a probability of error estimated at less than 1 in 60 million. Bible was charged with first-degree murder, kidnapping, and child molestation. In April of 1990, he was convicted on all counts and sentenced to death. Over the next 21 years, he filed numerous appeals challenging evidence and requesting additional DNA testing. None were successful. The case became a symbol of both the power and the delays of the justice system. Jennifer's family endured decades of legal proceedings before the sentence was carried out. On June 30, 2011, Richard Lynn Bible was executed by lethal injection at the Arizona State Prison Complex in Florence. His final words were brief: "I want to thank my family and my lawyers. I love them all. Everything's okay. That's it." Jennifer's parents, Rich and Nancy Wilson, watched in silence. Her father later said, "The system does work. It's slow, but it works. Today needed to happen." Richard Bible's story is not just about a crime, it's about the long, painful pursuit of justice. And for the Wilson family, it marked the beginning of healing after more than 2 decades of grief. Daniel Wayne Cook was 26 years old when he committed one of Arizona's most brutal double homicides. At the time, he worked at a restaurant in Lake Havasu City and shared a modest apartment with two co-workers, Carlos Cruz Ramos and John Matsky. To outsiders, Cook appeared like any other young man, quiet, reserved, perhaps troubled. But beneath that exterior lay a history of unimaginable trauma and a capacity for violence that would soon erupt. Cook's childhood was marked by relentless abuse. He was sexually assaulted by multiple family members, burned with cigarettes by his father, and subjected to sadistic punishments in foster care. One group home leader forced him to undergo circumcision at 15 and confined him naked in a room with a one-way mirror. These experiences left Cook with deep psychological scars, including post-traumatic stress disorder and signs of brain damage from prenatal exposure to alcohol and drugs. On the evening of July 19, 1987, Cook stole money from Cruz Ramos. When Ramos began searching for it, Cook and Matska lured him upstairs, tied him to a chair, and began a 6-hour ordeal of torture. They beat him with a metal pipe and wooden stick, burned his genitals with cigarettes, and cut his chest with a knife. Cook sodomized Ramos and used a stapler on his foreskin. When Matska asked why, Cook replied, "I'm having fun." At midnight, what Cook called the witching hour, they crushed Ramos's throat with the pipe and hid his body in a closet. Just hours later, 16-year-old Kevin Swanee, another coworker, arrived at the apartment. Cook showed him Ramos's body, then forced him to undress and tied him to a chair. While Matsky slept, Cook sodomized Swanee. When Matsky awoke, Cook insisted they had to kill him. They attempted to strangle Swanee with a bedsheet, but when Matska's grip slipped, Cook said, "This one's mine," and finished the job himself. The next morning, Matska confessed to a friend who convinced him to go to the police. Officers arrested Cook at the apartment. His chilling words to detectives were, "We got to partying. Things got out of hand. Now 2 people are dead." He admitted to killing Swanee but claimed Matsky killed Ramos. Cook was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. Matsky accepted a plea deal for second-degree murder and testified against Cook, receiving a 20-year sentence. Cook chose to represent himself at trial despite warnings from the judge. His defense was minimal, and no mitigating evidence about his traumatic past was presented. Years later, his appellate lawyers argued that Cook had been denied effective counsel and that his childhood abuse should have been considered. In April 2011, the U.S. Supreme Court granted a temporary stay of execution to review these claims. But ultimately, the appeal was dismissed and Cook's execution was scheduled. On August 8, 2012, Cook was executed by lethal injection at the Florence State Prison. The process lasted 37 minutes. His final words were fragmented and strange. "I'd like to say sorry to the victim's family. I know that's not enough. Where am I? To my lawyers, thank you. Red Robin Yum, I'm done. I love you." The families of the victims had mixed reactions. Some felt Cook's apology was hollow. Others, like Swanee's brother, expressed unexpected sympathy, saying, "The man I saw on that gurney was scared." Psychologists later noted that Cook's methods of torture mirrored the abuse he had endured as a child. The same acts, burning, binding, sexual assault, were repeated in his crimes. Prosecutor Eric Larson later admitted, "Had I known about his traumatic childhood and mental illness, I would not have sought the death penalty." Daniel Wayne Cook's story is a harrowing reminder of how cycles of abuse can manifest in devastating ways. His crimes were monstrous, but so too was the life that shaped him. And in the end, the question remains, was justice served, or was another damaged soul simply silenced? If you enjoy this kind of content, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think. And don't forget to give this video a like and hit that subscribe button. It really helps me stay motivated to bring you more stories in the next episode. Thanks for watching, and take care.